Oh, I'm glad to be back, guys. How are we doing?
We are doing great, and it's Bears Packers week immediately to start the season,
I
which
know.
is a lot of fun. So for those who don't remember, you've played in this rivalry. What's it like?
The urgency picks up. The tempo of the game, the play speed picks up. There's a different feel to Bears Packers, whether it's at Lambeau, whether it's at Soldier Field, the game we talked about last year, whether it's in Champaign, Illinois. It doesn't matter where you're playing this football game. There is an intensity to it that is different than playing someone from the AFC East, right? Than playing someone from the NFC East. It just is, and that you will feel that, in my opinion, based on my experience, you feel that throughout the week of practice. You feel that's the lead up to the game, the pregame. You feel that when you come out of the tunnel. This feels more, in my opinion, almost like a college football game.
Interesting.
Is that good or bad? Does it mean it's going to be sloppy and
No,
dumb, and
no, no.
all the special teams are going to suck?
No, no. What I mean is there's a different feel about it. Yes, you're professional. There's always a business-like atmosphere to pro games, much different than college, and obviously much different than Friday nights where I coach. But this game just has that different feel to it where it matters more. One is the divisional game. And look, we've talked about this for years. When the game's in your division, you're usually playing football in January, right? So it has more importance there also because it is a divisional opponent. And there's also, these are the teams you study in the offseason. Every time you go through your self-scouting as offseason, where you're a coach or a player in the NFL, you start with your divisional opponents. You study offensive, defensive tendencies. You study how they targeted you or how they attacked you last year based on their personnel. And you start to generate a game plan of what you can do, what you can get away with, and how you can create explosive plays on offense and limit them on defense.
I'm super excited about what Tyrique Stevenson could be.
Mm-hmm.
Watching his tape, reading the reports on him, hearing what people are saying in practice. My concern is that because he is an aggressive player and is used to man coverage, my concern is double moves and him being attacked because we know on the other side of the field, people don't like to throw at Jalen Johnson. So what are the coaching points for a young, aggressive corner in his first NFL game? How do you say, hey, we want you to be you, but be careful?
It's your eye discipline. It's always your eye discipline in the secondary, Lawrence. You cannot have greedy eyes. Okay, when you have really greedy eyes, that's when you get caught. That's when they start to run double moves on you. That's when you lose leverage. That's when you lose the wide receiver who gets behind your hip pocket and you can't find him. It's all about eye discipline in the secondary. Yes, we talk about footwork, cushion, leverage. That stuff all matters. It's a big part of playing coverage in football, but it's your eye discipline. You have to trust your eyes. You have to believe your eyes. You also have to be cautious with your eyes, especially when you're playing your first National Football League game. Because if I'm Matt LaFleur, that's what I'm going after too. I'm going to test him early. I'm going to keep testing him. Now, if he makes a couple plays, I'm going to back off. But I'm going to go after Stevenson early. And I agree with you, Lawrence. I remember watching Stevenson down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Has the physical traits. And that's really this secondary in a whole. This is a secondary I would love to coach. I would love to coach the secondary in Chicago because of the physical demeanor they have. We can talk about coverage traits. We can talk about ball skills. That stuff all matters. But from my perspective and a coaching perspective, I want a secondary that dictates the tempo of the game, that dictates the outcome of a football game. And that starts with physical play style, and this group has it.
All right, while we're talking about this, let me bounce off of you what I mentioned a couple segments ago, and that is the idea that not having another preseason game, not having at least something that simulates real football, takes away another test of discipline when it comes to officiating and understanding the outsized effect that officiating has when the lights go on. Because the practices aren't, quote-unquote, officiated the same way, and even exhibition games aren't officiated the same way. When I see a guy like Tyrique Stevenson, what I won't have happen, and I can't have happen, he makes a play, right? Fourth quarter, dives, bats it away, gets up, and does a dance where he's facing the wrong direction, and a flag comes in. Like it's when you say it's a college game, I see a lot of college kids acting a fool sometimes over celebrating. You can't do that at this level.
No, I understand that, and you bring up a good point about the officiating without the extra game, because also there is a transition. I've said this before. There's a major transition from training camp speed to preseason speed, and then there's a huge jump to regular season speed. Okay, so that includes the officials, right? The game's going to move so much faster on Sunday than it did in August. So much faster. One, you're going to have starters in there for 4 quarters. Okay, you're going to have big-time players in the field for 4 quarters. And the game is just faster. The tempo is faster. Getting out of the huddle is faster. the formations. You're going to stretch the field more. You're going to be more aggressive. That all includes the officials being able to transition with you, being in a position to make the right calls, being in a position to understand that there's going to be some combat outside the numbers between wide receivers and corners. You have to let some of that go and let these kids play, right? There's going to be situations like that. So that is a concern, Dan. I agree with you. In that first week of the season where officials get caught in the wrong position and they do not make the right calls.
Matt, do you expect Jair Alexander to travel with DJ Moore? And if you were coaching Green Bay, would you travel him?
That's a great question. Now, look, when they're in man coverage, yes, 100% in man coverage. I think Alexander's a top 2 corner in the NFL right now, based on his tape and based on what I study. He is that good and that talented. So when you're in man coverage, yes. Now, Green Bay, I think there'll be a split, around 50% man and zone. And when they play zone, it's hard to travel, obviously, because you can just motion DJ Moore across the formation. That takes care of it. But that's, something to build off of that, Lawrence, is what they do with DJ Moore pre-snap. Is there a lot of movement with him pre-snap? Are you giving Justin Fields the proper coverage indicators, but also putting DJ Moore in a position where he gets free access off the line of scrimmage? And that's the key to this, where he doesn't have to battle time and time again against Alexander in man coverage situations to get loose. Let's give him free access off the ball. Let's put him in bunch. Let's put him in stacks. Let's put him in fast motion to get him loose underneath, because you went out and got DJ Moore for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's the ball carrier vision after the catch. I think it's the physical element he plays with. Yes, he can stretch the field vertically. We know that. But in this game, looking at Green Bay, what they have up front, and looking at Chicago offensively, what they have up front, I would really try to get the ball to Justin's hands. A lot of screens to DJ Moore, a lot of unders, a lot of scheme crossers that allow him to attack open grass, because then he can be a football player for you. But it starts pre-snap and how you create that.
As far as the scheme crossers go, I'm trying to remember who we were talking to. It was one of our experts. It might have been, was it Nate Tyson? It was someone saying that Chase Claypool his game doesn't necessarily match what you think it is looking at his body. That he's built, you'd scout him as a classic X. As one of these split ends, like a DK Metcalf light, when in fact his skill is yards after the catch, ball in his hands, swerving around middle of the field. If you're going to throw those crossers, I know we think Mooney and Moore, but that's a great opportunity to see what Claypool can do if it's going to be an important part of your passing game.
I agree. And it also gives your quarterback a defined read. I think we've talked about this before. We called them clear and replace concepts. What that means is the outside receiver clears, and you replace that area with a crosser or a deep over. That's one of the classic NFL play action passing concepts right now. And that can be a spot for Chase Claypool for sure, because when you catch those passes, you're open. That's how you're scheming people open. You're creating those coverage voids versus zone coverage, clearing the corner out, pulling the linebackers down with quick play action. There's your second level void to attack on the crossers. And it's not just catch and tackle, it's catch and run in those situations. And I think the Bears need more of that in their offense. I think it makes it easier for the quarterback. You're not putting the quarterback in a position where he has to throw deep outs on third and 6 to 10. You're putting him in a position where you can throw to scheme voids and using your talent, because you went out this offseason and upgraded this entire roster. Right? That's what they did, what Ryan Poles did. You upgraded the offensive line. You upgraded a wide receiver. You upgraded all three levels of the defense. This is a game you have to win, in my opinion. This is a game where you should start 1-0. Green Bay is going through a major transition. And I know Jordan Love has first-round traits. There's no question about that. He has not played a lot of football, but he has the arm talent. He's an excellent mover. He can play off second reaction. That is a young football team in Green Bay on the offensive side of the ball. This is a game the Bears should win, be 1-0, and go on to next week.
Okay, you talk about inspiring. See, there you go. You get that from Matt Bowen. I do have some questions, though, about both quarterbacks, and you already started with Love. Let me ask you about Fields. What are the things that you specifically are going to be looking for as evidence of Justin's a better passer this season?
I think his eye level in the pocket. Okay, with an athletic quarterback, a lot of times when you get pressure, the eye level will drop a little bit. You start reading the rush and looking to create, because we've talked about this. Justin has the physical tools that are different than everyone on the field. He can create special plays consistently, but you want to see him do that when necessary. You want to see him throw it from the pocket. You want to see him rip it from the pocket down the field to the second and third level. You want to see him read it out with a little bit more speed. And like I said, you can define it, you can scheme it for them. There's going to come a time in every football game with every quarterback in this league, we're going to have to make plays in critical moments where you can't define it, you can't scheme it. It's got to be the quarterback getting from 1 to 2 or going to the backside, hitting the backside in breaker, who's your 3, or finding the running back, or creating space for himself as a thrower in the pocket. I think that's the next progression for Fields, is to master the pocket, is to master it where he can step up, he can throw the shoulder forward, he can slide, he can create more space for him as a thrower because he has a lot of talent around him right now.
I was going to ask you about Mercedes Lewis and what his role is actually going to be on the fact that they brought the 39-year-old tight end in and he's on the roster. And then I was looking at, you guys played the same year. You were still playing in 06 when he was a rookie. Yes. That's incredible.
I know. It is. I mean, that's one of if you look at his career, because he plays a very physical position too. That's the thing about it. You're not talking about a wide receiver who is a rotational player. This is a tight end. That is very physical. And I think with Lewis, what your expectations are for him, obviously not high receiving volume. He can catch the ball on flats and unders and boots. But I think you're really bringing him in to reach block and a down block. That's what you're doing here. You're bringing him in to set an edge. And look, that is the number one thing in football. Whether it's offense or defense, whoever sets the edge usually wins the football game, right? Whoever can get to the perimeter and win usually wins that game. So I think you're bringing him in there to be a perimeter blocker in your scheme that can set the edge for you, that you can get runs to the outside. That's what I believe.
This is about the healthiest the Green Bay offensive line has been, the most intact that we've seen them in a long time. Now, granted, Mercedes Lewis not being there hurts them in the run game, but this run game has been very effective for them with their 2 backs and a healthy offensive line. How will the Bears have to combat that?
That's a great point, because the run game is a foundational piece of Matt LaFleur's offense. I mean, that's what it is. The offense is built out of the run game. That's why they have so much success throwing play action, because it looks just like the run game. I mean, that's who they are. I mean, you look at that coaching tree, that's where it starts, is the run game. And it's usually outside or inside zone, some power in there as well. But for Chicago, you really look at what you did at the linebacker position this offseason, right? The additions you made there and how they can impact the run game, how they can play downhill, be cut off and force players versus run game. Because I agree with you. Jones and Dillon, that's a really good backfield. And we know Aaron Jones can be productive as a receiver as well. But I do believe, and I've said this before, with Jordan Love, if you're looking at the Green Bay offense, broad view of their offense, I think in the beginning of the season they're going to be much more run heavy, right? That's what I would do from a coaching perspective. Be run heavy, then build your pass game out of it to throw your second level play action throws, and then take your shots down the field off of max protection. But I think this is a game where Chicago has to win defensively versus the run game, because you can't allow Green Bay to control tempo and to put their young quarterback in favorable situations.
Well, then they're in trouble, because I think their tackles are bad. I really do. And I think getting Dexter and Pickens up to speed as quickly as possible is going to be an indicator as to the overall quality of this team, because you've got replacement level 3 technique and maybe replacement level nose tackle.
No, I agree with that. And that's going to be a major test. And you talked about the 2 rookie defensive tackles. Can they be disruptive, right? Look, they're going to make mistakes. Any rookie who's playing in this game is going to make mistakes.
But at that position, I don't care.
Disruptive.
Like, even if you can make a mistake and still be upfield and it's still a positive, even if something's a little off in your technique or your gap is over here, just get up there.
I agree with that, Dan. And that's the beauty of playing defensive tackle as a rookie. If you can get off the football and if you can be disruptive, you completely disrupt the timing of the run play, right? Now you're forcing the running back to bounce to the edge when it's supposed to hit inside. Now you're knocking off a puller that's trying to get to the edge. So I agree with you. But those defensive tackles, that you have to have some interior disruption at any level of football to play the run game. You have to create negative plays at times, right? You can't give up 4.5 yards a carry at any level and win games. You have to create negative plays. So sure, the focus, you were talking about the Bears run game, I would start interior, like you said, Dan.
Matt, what advice would you give players that are getting ready to play in their first NFL regular season game?
I would say the first thing is know your alignment and assignment, right? I've always said that's a cover charge to playing football. Know where you're supposed to be. Know where you're supposed to line up. Know how you have to make checks on defense and make checks on offense. Put yourself in a favorable position so you can just play football. That's the first thing, right? Be assignment sound and assignment ready for this football game. The next thing is you have to adjust to the speed. It's going to be the fastest thing you've ever seen in your life and the most physical thing you've ever seen in your life. The game speed at field level is something, you can't really prep for it. You just have to experience it. And those are the two things I look at and say, well, look, if you're assignment sound, you're ready to play football. Especially if you're a defensive player, you read your keys, you can play football. But it's adjusting to the speed. And I do think for young players, that can take a quarter and a half in a football game. For some guys, it's a couple weeks. But the number one thing, Lawrence, is to put yourself in a position where you don't hurt the scheme, right? You have to be positive in terms of scheme so you don't hurt the scheme and give up a negative play.